trolls on your side?
No, all I see it's live though.
All right. Hi, everyone. We are live for the first live podcast of the Mobile Growth Show. Um, there are not a lot of live users right now, but we have a very exciting guest today. We have got Steve Young, actually. He's the founder and CEO of AppMasters, a mobile growth hacking company. Steve has helped many apps reach number one of the App Store, and today he's here to share some of his ASO expertise. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Ashwin. I'm glad to be the first ever live interview.
I know things may not be very smooth, just so you know, but it'll be fun.
You know what, Ashwin? I'm here, so it's definitely going to be smooth. So you have nothing to worry about, my friend.
All right. I'm hearing my own voice, which is kind of weird. Now it's better. Okay, so Steve, tell us, what got you interested in App Store optimization?
App Store optimization. So I'll tell you the sort of the brief overview of where I came to be. I started in apps in 2011, and I started building apps because I wanted to build something for my son. I mean, he's about almost 2 at the time, and I saw him interacting with other apps really well. And so I started this podcast called AppMasters where I interviewed. It's like at the time, fast forward to 2013, I had a side business within apps. I had maybe 5, probably close to 10 apps at the time, all in the educational space. I said, is this going to be a hobby, or is this going to be something that I pursue full time? So I started interviewing people that I really admired. And at the time, I had no idea what ASO was. I had no idea what it stood for, like App Store optimization, obviously. And so through that, I've learned a ton, and I've just executed on what I've learned through the interviews and then come up with my own stuff. And so I decided to learn, execute, bring in my little flavor, make my own little recipes, and then teach what I know and then help others with what I know.
So you must have seen App Store optimization kind of mature through the process, almost similar to like SEO, because a lot of things have happened in the past few years.
It's crazy because, I was talking to a past guest of mine. He's like, his downloads dropped maybe, I don't know what the exact percentage was, but half, let's just say 60 to 80% after, I think it was iOS 6 or whenever it was, when Apple decided to change from their little column, icon, price, little, app name to now it's just like showing the screenshots. And I forgot about that change, but that was just maybe a couple of years ago. And so the App Store has definitely gone through a bunch of changes since I started the podcast, and now different strategies are starting to pop up. And yeah, so like a lot has changed. That's why I love the mobile space. It moves fast.
It moves really fast. Actually, there's an event right now that will decide the mobile future. So that's pretty exciting. Are you an iPhone user by any chance?
Yeah, of course.
So are you going to buy a 6S, or are you going to wait for another year?
No, I generally have the 6 right now, and so my wife and I are on separate years. Her year is this year, and then mine will be next.
Cool. So let's go back to ASO. So why is ASO so important? Why can't we just create like an awesome app and then done with it?
I think the one thing that I want to talk about, Ashwin, is it's not just one strategy. You almost have to utilize all strategies. Now, ASO is important because if this is the outlet that you're trying to get your app noticed by, it's going to become extremely important. But it's not so important that if you butcher it, like you really suck at ASO, that's going to really tank your app success. One of my past one of my past guests on the podcast, he has 2 million downloads and he sucks at ASO. Like he really does suck at ASO. And so I would say it's just one of the different strategies that you can utilize to get traction for your app. And so ASO, in a nutshell, it allows people to explore. A lot of people are doing searches within the App Store. And if you have the right keywords in your app name, your description, and your keyword field, you're able to grow your exposure. And some of the success stories that I've gotten, like I increased for one of my paid apps, I increased downloads by 233% just by changing the app name and the keywords. I mean, it was a paid app. And so that download was a pretty significant increase. So it's pretty important to pay attention to, but it's not going to make or break you if you completely butcher it.
Okay. That's a very interesting story. So what did you actually change, like in the keywords? What was the main change that you made that got you 233% hike? in your
Yeah, I mean,
conversions?
so I was starting from a really low bottom, so that really helps too, because I knew nothing about ASO at the time. I think I had
Yeah.
ABC, ABCs, and then Alphabet, and so it was a phonics app. And so I had ABC in the app name and the keyword field, which is a big no-no. So this is before I started the podcast.
Okay.
And it was one of my better performing apps actually. And so what I did was I use Sensor Tower a lot. So I go into Sensor Tower, kind of figure out what the keyword score is, difficulty, traffic. I'm looking for high traffic keywords with low difficulty. And through that, I also use a tool called OneLook Reverse Dictionary. It's like a thesaurus, but I think it's a lot better. And so I use that a lot to figure out which keywords. I pretty essentially put a big list of keywords together, and I go into Sensor Tower, put all these keywords into Sensor Tower to find their traffic score and their difficulty score. And then based on that, I kind of decide like which ones I'm going to target. So it went from ABC DJ was the app name to Phonics Play, get kids hooked on alphabet sounds. And what I was trying to do there was found out Phonics Play was something else that had pretty good search volume. And it was actually a keyword phrase. And I learned that through the Google AdWords tool. So I wanted that in there. And then because I already had phonics, I wanted get hooked on phonics, right? Like hooked on phonics is a very popular term. So I put get kids hooked on alphabet sounds, but having phonics and hooked on, I think I ranked number 4 or 6 for hooked on phonics. And then for phonics play, I think I was like 2 or 3. And so, coming from nowhere, just having ABC DJ which isn't really descriptive of what the app did. Essentially, the app allows you to hear the phonetic sounds of the English alphabet. And so I needed those keywords in there. And then I completely redid the keyword field because I wasn't even utilizing the 100 characters at all. And I did start to utilize it. And then I also, one of the big newbie mistakes I made was I had spaces in between the keywords. So you have keyword 1, comma, and I put space, keyword 2, and you don't need that extra space. And so there's big newbie mistakes that I used to make.
Interesting. So this was on the Apple Store, or was it on the Google Play Store?
Yeah, it's on the Apple Store, iOS.
So what are the biggest differences now, like since there are a lot of apps coming on the Google Play Store too? So what are the biggest differences when it comes to ASO between the two stores?
I think the biggest difference, obviously, is that there's a couple of different things. So on iOS, you have a keyword field, which is nice. You can put a bunch of keywords in there. On Google Play, you don't. And then on Google Play, you're very limited in terms, I think it's 30 characters you're limited to for the app name. So you can't stuff your app name with a bunch of keywords. Apple doesn't particularly, I think it's 256, but you don't want to go too long. You want to keep it around 100 characters, but Apple will let you do that. So that's the key difference. And then Google, because they're from the search, their description, people are saying that iOS, the description is being indexed. People are just saying it. I don't know if it's clear that it's being indexed. We know that the app name and the keywords are definitely indexed, but it doesn't hurt to have some good keywords in your description as well. But for Google, they're going to rely on your description, right? They came from the search terms. I mean, the search world. So content's king with them. So obviously they're going to pay a lot of close attention to the keywords in your description. So you want to make sure keyword density wise, like that it's a good amount. So those are the key differences. I think Google Play likes to incorporate social sharing. So if you can get more Google Pluses on your app store, that's going to come into play. And then reviews are, vital for both stores. And so all those come into play. But the key difference is description is way more important on Google Play, and then app name and keywords are way more important on iOS.
So on Google, like backlinking also plays a role. Like for example, if you have review sites, you can link back to them. Does that play a role, or like blogs talking about you?
Yeah, it does play a role. I mean, they come from search, right? So the keywords that they link to your Google Play Store, that's going to help you out. So if they're linking to, I don't know, productivity app, and they link to your Google Play actual store link, then that's going to help you as well. That's a long-term strategy, right? It's not like it's not a lever you can just pull and be like, oh, like I'm number 2 now. Like that's so cool. Like I got one backlink from Mashable, and then now I'm number 2. It's a long-term play like SEO, right? Like it's about content, producing good content, and then continually going out there and doing it. And so it's not like this like one interview is going to make and break my business, right? Like it's going to be continuous interviews that I can do that's going to grow my brand. And so that's the way to think about it that way with the backlinking.
Okay. So when someone's starting out, trying to get their app and top the charts of the App Store, at least, get some relevant traffic. what are the most common or biggest mistakes that most of the app developers do, according to you?
Okay, so my forte, what I've been known for, is more like the PR side, different growth hacking strategies, but primarily through PR, app promotion. One of the biggest mistakes that most app developers make is they rush the whole thing. They rush it all the time. Like, hey, I want to launch this Thursday. Have you submitted to the App Store? No, but I know that's 11 days out and I got enough time, right? Like the average review time is 8 days. I got enough time. I got it. I'm like, no. What you really want and the optimal way to launch the app is, okay, a month before, you start putting everything together, right? Your press list, your email, what you're going to go out with, start interacting with the reporters, as much as possible. You want to build a long-term relationship with these reporters. So on Twitter, follow them, put them on a list, start interacting with them, know what they like, what they don't like, who are they into? Are they into sports? Know everything about them. And I've just focused more on like the 5 to 10 reporters that are going to have a huge swing on your app downloads. So if you get on Techcrunch, that's going to have a huge swing. If you get on Mashable, it's going to have a huge swing. Focus on those reporters. That's one. Next is when you submit your app, just plan on 2 weeks after that to launch. Because what happens is when you're going out to the press, about a week before you're about to launch, that way you have a launch date, right? For one, you have a launch date. You have a good, secure launch date. You probably want to launch on a Wednesday or Thursday. Those are best times. Thursdays are when new apps come out. And so if you're trying to get featured by Apple, that tends to help. But Wednesdays are usually nice because you're not so crowded. It's still in the middle of the week, meaning people are still visiting TechCrunch because by the weekend, traffic dies down. But anyways, so once you have that date in mind, when you reach out to reporters, usually about 7 to 10 days before you're about to launch, send a quick email. Hey, this is coming out. Would love to send you more information. This is what makes it different, so forth. And then if they respond, you can reply back with a promo code. Say, hey, the app's already approved, right? Like, it's going to definitely launch. Because, I've had clients where like, hey, Steve, we can't launch on the day. Like, I'm not approved yet. I just got rejected again. I got rejected again. Just take it nice and easy. Like, don't rush this whole thing, right? Like, just don't rush it. So get it approved and then start your press outreach, because then that's where you can say, oh, perfect, you're interested. Here's a promo code to download the app. Don't bother. One, what it shows is, oh, Apple has approved it. It's locked and loaded. It should be a well-functioning app. Two, no reporter wants to deal with test flight. I hate dealing with test flight. We're like, oh, what's your test flight email? Let me tell you a tip for everybody. It doesn't matter what my test flight email is. The email that you have for me, it will work. As long as I open it on my app, on my phone, and then it opens on the test flight app, everything works. Ever since Apple bought test flight, everything works seamlessly. So that's one. But nobody wants to do that. Just send me the approved version and just give me the promo code. I'll download it. I know that Apple's approved it. I know you're locked and loaded, and you're like, you're legit. Like, you're not trying to fly by the seat of your pants. So just take your time with that. That's what I'd say.
So how do you grab attention? Because, as you said, TechCrunch, Mashable, these are big names, and there's so many apps that are coming out almost every day. So how do you grab?
So I'll give you a couple of ways that I've talked about in the past. One is the exclusive angle. So you give a big publication the exclusive on your announcement, meaning you're not going to go out to all these different publications, email every single one of them. You're just going to talk to TechCrunch, like, hey, this is exclusive to you. Okay, we've gotten a ton of good press through that strategy, and that's one way to really stand out. The other way is you got to focus more on what's your unique selling point. Like, it has to be unique. There's too many out there. Okay, and so there's a couple of ways to do this in terms of how do you massage, how do you find that. And I'll give you an example, Ashwin. So when I launched OSnap, one of my apps, I think in 2014 I launched it, but essentially I said it's the perfect camera app for selfies. And I got nobody to open it. Nobody responded, nobody opened it, nothing, right? And I was like, oh man, what's happening? And so I changed it to tap anywhere to take a picture. And then I saw everybody open that one. Or like almost 100% of the people I emailed opened it. Because that was my key thing. Like, I wanted to create a camera app that you can touch anywhere to take a picture. I didn't feel like you needed a button. Like, I wanted to be like the clear for camera apps, right? So it's all gesture based and all that. And so you got to find what's really unique about it. So if you can't find that and you're like, oh, I don't know, it's just a game. Like, it's just a cool game. Well, then try to find something that's very similar to it, but it's unique in its own way. So for example, you know, one of my past clients, we bring in a well-known app. And so things that have worked for me, it's like Wheel of Fortune, but it's a colorful spin on it. Colorful spin on Wheel of Fortune. Things that people can say, oh, I know what Wheel of Fortune is. Let me see what they did cleverly different. Or another one that I used was if Flappy Bird was an astronaut. All right. And I was like, okay, well, let me check that out. That got all Mashable. And so like try to use something that's already well known and put your own clever spin on it. Because look, if you're a complete copy, nobody's going to write about you. But if you just but using a well-known brand will get their attention, at least open it. And then you could be like, hey, look, check it out. Here's a video. Here's why it's different, obviously. And here's why it's cool. But yeah, like definitely check it out.
Okay, makes sense. So like, what's the best way to decide, you know, what keywords you should go for? So it also relates to, you know, the unique point for your application. How do you find that? And then, you know, optimize your application for it and optimize your PR material for it. How do you do that?
Keyword, like from an ASO's perspective?
Yeah, ASO perspective.
I just try, usually when I'm doing keyword research, I try to find a keyword that has very low competition. So decent traffic score around 2 to 3, but a difficulty score of like 1 and under, really. 2 and under is good, but 1 and under I'm trying to look for. And then I look for how many apps actually show up for this particular keyword as an indicator too. So if there's tons of apps that show up for this particular keyword, I'm probably never, as a new app, I'm probably never going to rank for it. And so I just go away with it. Like it's just Instagram. Like I'm not going to rank well for that. Like unless I have some millions of dollars of funding and I'm really going to get out there and make a big splash as an indie developer, I'm probably going to stay away from that keyword. And so really I use Sensor Tower. You can use other ASO tools, but I try to find one with pretty low difficulty and decent amount of traffic. And that's where I go after.
So if someone is trying to like create a productivity app, let's say tomorrow, and you know, should they be discouraged because such a crowded app category, or how should they approach that, you know, to like get some eyeballs to the application?
Say the question again, the first part.
So like, for example, you know, like the productivity apps. So like, it's such a crowded app category. And then, for example, tomorrow an app developer decides to create a productivity app and he wants to compete in that app category. Does he not stand a chance at all, or do you think he can do certain things to beat the competition, even if it's on the higher side?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to find a good joke for this, but everything's freaking crowded, man. Like what in the world are you going to get into that's not crowded? Like, oh, I'm going to start a blog. And does that mean I should stop writing about productivity blog? Like, should I not write that? No, I think everything is crowded. That means it's a good thing, right? Like people are really building sustainable businesses within. It drives me nuts when people say things are crowded. I'm like, okay, yeah, like what am I going to do that's not crowded? If it's not crowded, maybe I shouldn't do it because nobody's doing it. Like, you know, like, and so like maybe there's not a market for it. The thing I would think about with productivity is like solving a real pain, like, and what's your unique angle for solving that real pain? So one of the most recent apps that I came across, and I interviewed him on my podcast too. He made the app called Streaks. Now she's seeing it everywhere. So Streaks allows you to have 6 things that, let me see if there's anything. Okay, good. Allows you to have 6 things. So I'm going to do this. It's on video.
Oh, there you go.
And it allows me to just tap. And what I really like about it, so look, I woke up, right, is hold on to it and then it circles it. So rather than having, you know, a little check mark or just me tapping it, he made it really unique and engaged me on interacting with the app. So that's one. But he's solving a fundamental problem that we're all trying to build habits around, good habits, right? And so he said, all right, I'm going to build an app that he's going to limit to 6. And that was the key thing. Like, I only think you can obviously only work on a few habits. Don't overwhelm yourself. It's one of the features that he gets asked a lot. Like, can I add more like habits that I want to track? But you're solving a real problem, because, you know, when you solve that real problem, the way I found out about the app was a lot of my friends on Instagram or Twitter, they're sharing their streaks. Like, hey, look, I did this for 7 days. People want to share what they've done as an accomplishment, right? Like something good that they've done because they want to make themselves look good. And so they're going to want to share it. You're solving a fundamental problem that is but habit building and doing it in a way that I think what most app developers do, and I'm guilty of this, is not pay attention to the small little details. The small little details, and these are the things that I love to discover from a product perspective, is this, like this interaction of me holding that down. That's a way different feeling that I get from the app than just tapping something, or like, even if I did a check mark, that would be kind of cool. But that's a way different interaction, just tapping it. And what most app developers would do is just say, oh, let's just tap it, and that'll be fine. But the really good ones really figure out these small little interactions that make an app from good to really excellent. And I think that's what I like to focus on when I'm looking at apps or when I'm trying to build different things. Like, what are those small little things that make that huge difference that most people just don't even notice that they're there?
So do you think an app developer can go through a beta testing process where he, tests out his app on different kind of audiences and see what kind of responses he's getting, and then use that? Is that part of the process that you use, or people can incorporate that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, here's what he did. He just went to his friends and said, here's the app. Here's what it does. Go ahead. One of the things that drive me crazy, and I tend to have a lot of app dinners with app entrepreneurs in the Bay Area. And so we're always exchanging our phones, right? And one guy drove me nuts. He's like, here's my app. Here's what you do. Here's how you do that. And how you do this. Here's how you do that. I'm like, great. You got nothing out of me. Like, I see a lot of apps. You're around all these people who are in the app space, and yet you showed me how to use your app. Instead of just giving me the phone, be like, here's what my app does. Go ahead, figure it out. That's what I like to do. Here's what my app does. Here you go. And then just wait. And then you're going to get some really good feedback on what people are trying to do, what people are not trying to do. I literally give my apps to my son. Like, here you go. Here's the app. Figure it out. And I want to see what he does. And a lot of people like slide when they should be tapping, or they tap when they should be sliding. You're going to figure out these interactions. And it drives me nuts. Just tell them what your app does, and just hand it over and see what they do with it. That's what you can get some real critical user feedback. Those little small features from the tapping thing, like, they're gonna be like, oh, that's cool. And when I saw with my camera app, when I shook my phone and the camera flipped, they're like, ooh, that's cool. And so I get to find these magical moments that you wouldn't get through like a video or through forms or survey forms. You got to just go talk to real people, show them the app. Like, oh yeah, and I just go, here you go, tap it. And it's like, tap it to take a picture. I had to walk them through because there's no like tutorial. I was like, shake it. And then they shook it, like, oh, cool, that's cool. Because they saw themselves like, oh. And so that was the magical moment for me. I was like, oh, okay, like that's key. And then these are some key features.
Awesome. So like, when someone's launching their apps, they've got the PR kit ready. They know, what the USP of their application is. They've got great press. But do you think it's sustainable over a longer period of time? Because you may have like this huge increase in downloads when Techcrunch features here, but then what happens after 3 months or 4 months or 6 months? How do you sustain that flow of PR, or is it even sustainable?
Yeah, it is. It is. So the way I would do this is, I actually have worked with a few people who are in that realm. Like, oh, we got featured, and now we need some more growth channels. So the things I would do is refine, okay, refine, and then update. Try to get press for the update. Right now, it's very difficult unless you're a really big app like Facebook, Google, whatever, to have an update that's really noteworthy. And so the way I think about PR and any type of growth channel, right, is there's a great book called Traction. Is to focus on different traction channels as you continually grow or trying to sustain. So on launch, everybody thinks about PR. Like, I'm launching, I want to get people to know about it. I want Apple to know about it. I want to try to get featured, blah, 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 right? So, okay, PR is the one focus when you launch. What happens a month after? Maybe it's Facebook ads. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's niche blogs, right? Hey, we were just featured on TechCrunch. Now you go to the really niche ones. And so let's say you have a productivity app. You want to get on Lifehacker. You want to get on Mashable. You want to get on TechCrunch. Whatever it is you want to get on. Okay, you get on there. Then you find a smaller blog. Maybe he got a guy who talks about productivity a lot, but has a pretty decent following. Then you focus on him, and you use the social proof that you got through TechCrunch, whatever, Lifehacker, and say, hey, like, we were just on TechCrunch. We'd love for you to check it out. If it's a paid app, say, here's a free promo code. Whatever it is, you try to massage that relationship, and then you move on, right? Like, you have to focus on one channel at a time. And now, like, let's say you're 3 months in, you've got some really good metrics. You're starting to see some engagement. You built a really good app. Like, oh, okay, now we know our users are craving for this particular feature. So now you wrap that up into a bigger update announcement, meaning one update announcement that I like to talk about is, hey, we're working on our Android, right? And so let's say now your Android version is ready to go. So you put your iOS update and your Android launch as one big announcement. And then maybe there's some milestones that you can talk about, retention rate, whatever it is. That becomes another big announcement, so that month 3 or 4, you have this to go back to PR as you are doing, Facebook ads or whatever from month 1, 2, 3.
So that sounds like there's a lot. Yeah, it makes sense. It feels like there's a lot of content that app developers need to create, and sometimes they may focus a lot on the development of the app and not on the content. So can you delve deeper into how important content is to promote the app and get eyeballs to the app in the app store?
Yeah, I mean, content in what sense though?
Content about, for example, you talked about the metrics, talking about the metrics of the app, or maybe even talk about something more general. Like, for example, if, again, going back to the productivity example, talking about how to organize your life or using the app in unique ways. Do you think that helps in getting more users to the application or in any way possible?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I understand your question correctly, yeah, I think anything, you have to constantly be out there, right? Like, I don't think it's just, hey, we're doing this big PR campaign and then that's it. Like, you got to be constantly out there. Like podcasts like this are a good way, right? like, hey, I was just on Techcrunch. Like, would you want an interview? Like, this was great. And so you're able to keep continually getting your message out there rather than, just one launch and then that's it. A lot of times we've been on Techcrunch before and we see this huge spike and then it goes, and then the next story hits, right? Like, and we're gone. And so the way I like to do it is, yeah, you gotta, whatever the channel is, you gotta get your word out there as much as possible, continuous. People know about you because of your consistency. They may learn about you because of some one big hit, but they know about you and they care about you because of your consistency. And so, with my podcast, it took me like a good 3 or 4 months of consistently putting out 2 episodes a week to build a loyal base. And now it's continually grown because I've been really consistent about it. And so that's what it takes. Like, you can't just do it once and be done with it.
So is there a general growth framework that app developers can use, or something that you can share with us to ensure that, the mobile growth is happening for the app developers, and they can track something over a period of time?
I mean, I think it's just like any SaaS business or any company, right? It's continually going out there, testing what really works, going out there, picking. That's why I like the Traction book so much, because it talks about 16 different channels and it talks about tips within one channel. And the key message is focus on one. Focus on the one channel that you think is going to work and see what it can do for you. So for you, launching with PR, great. What else do I do next? Right? Everybody's going to be different, but it could be, okay, I'm going to blog more, right? Like, I'm just going to talk about the success or the not success of my app. I'm going to blog a lot more. I'm going to create good content. I'm going to show people that, hey, here's how I've been able to monetize. Here's how I've been able to achieve 80% retention. Here's how I came up with a clever way of showing a tutorial that really gets people to sign up right away, right? And so I start talking about your app and people will learn about your app. People want to talk to you more about your app. And so now it becomes, you're creating the story. I'm always about how do I create the story rather than how do I always rely on somebody to tell my story. So with the podcast, with my blog, I'm telling the story. I'm the narrator too. And yes, I leverage other people's audience to grow mine. But at the same time, because I'm telling my own story, because I'm building that brand, people are still coming to me and be like, hey, do you want to guest blog post? Do you want to do an interview, a live interview? Do you want to do this? So it's about constant, I think sharing is key. So it depends. If your app is this is the one app that's going to make or break us, or I'm building a portfolio of suites like Real Mac software, right? Of Makers Clear. They started writing blogs. They started building up an audience. They started having more and more apps. But I think the real good companies, if you're an app company, sticking with what you know best. So if productivity is what you know best, stick with productivity. Don't try to go into games. It's going to be fun, but stick with what you know best. That way you can cross promote. That way your next app launch will be even more successful because you got a user base of people who are addicted to productivity. And so I I like the portfolio model because you're not just beholden to one app, and then sticking with the different categories of that portfolio. So I'm a portfolio of productivity apps, and that's all I want to be. Or I want to be a portfolio of just games, and that's all I want to do too.
All right. Before I go on to the next question, I just want to let the users know that we've got like 10 people watching. So if you have any questions, please jump in and I'll bring them to the show. So the next question I'm going to ask
10? What is up? Like, what are their names? To put your names in there. Ashwin, here's a little tip, brother. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's your first time doing it live, obviously. So what you really want to do before you go live is engage with the audience. Hey, what is up? 10 people? That's amazing. I thought nobody was going to show up. Hey, tell me where you are. What's your name? Where you're from? Tell me what you want to get out of this and get them to engage with them. So to the 10, you should know their names. You should be like, hey, what's up, Mark? Thanks for joining in. Oh, you're in New York? Holy cow. Like, how's the weather in New York? And that way people feel like, wow, this guy's cool. Like, I want to listen more.
So I'm getting tips from the podcast expert also live on the show. That's pretty awesome. Actually, there's one question for you.
Yeah.
Sanket1234 vacation, pretty awesome username. He says, does it make sense to iterate on your app based on feedback from early users acquired through press? Aren't they a lot more tech savvy than the mainstream audience?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a great book called Crossing the Chasm, right? And so yes, your app is probably going to be very specific to. Here, I'm here to repeat too because I'm trying to.
I think you're on YouTube, so you just gotta mute your YouTube.
I am. I'm trying to see the chat too, but I'll let you do it. Okay. So you're going to start with the early users, no matter what, right? Those are the people you have to eventually cross that chasm into general people, but those early people are going to tell you key things because they're pretty well known, and then they're very techie. So yes, use their feedback. Like that is it. Like, but if your app is like, I don't know, catered to non-techies, then why are you even on Techcrunch? Is what I would say. It's like, why are you even on Techcrunch? Like, there's no point for you to get in Techcrunch. Focus on the channels that will get you to that ideal user. So if you don't have a techie user, then go out to places where you can't find techie users, right? Go to a nursery home, for crying out loud, or something else that allows you to see those feedback. And so that's what I would do. But if, you know, I think a lot of things that I hear from my clients, like, oh, I have this app, can I get on Techcrunch? I'm like, no, your app isn't good for Techcrunch. Like, have you raised money? No. Have you done this? No. Have you done this? No. Then why do you want to be on Techcrunch? Like, there's no point. Like, let's focus our efforts on where, even if it's a smaller blog, it's where your target audience is. It's where you're going to actually get real good users and get real good user feedback and everything else. And so, yes. So to answer your question, yes, it's good if your app is techie to get focused on the tech ones, right? Because then you can iterate and really love them and then move over to the chasm. Like, how do you reach that other bigger audience? And know if your app isn't even made for techies, don't even talk to the techies. Scott Miller, look, hey Steve, great hanging out with you. I appreciate your tips. What's up, Scott? How's it going, brother?
Do you know Scott? Is he one of your clients?
No, but maybe I do. Don't say that, Ashwin. Of course I do.
All right, I'm gonna ask.
Yes, hello, Scott. And thank you.
I'm gonna ask you a very interesting question now, because this is the dream of every app developer. He wants to get featured on the App Store. And most of the people, from what I've talked to, even on our podcast and general conversations, you need to know someone in Apple to get your application featured. Do you think someone who doesn't know anyone in Apple, can he or she get their app featured in the App Store? Is that even possible?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know it from, yes, I know it because I've done it. Yeah, I wrote a blog post called "How a Cold Email Led to a Apple Feature." Okay, so we knew anybody. So essentially, it was a client of mine. He built a really good game, like a very good casual game where you can see. It's called Over My Head. So go search for that. It's a pretty cool game, In Over My Head. But essentially, it's a very good casual game where the front-facing camera, he uses it to show your face right in the center of the game. And so what we did was, the blog post says, go on LinkedIn, search for App Store Manager, pick company Apple, find the person that you want to reach. So for us, it was games, right? Mm-hmm. There's a plugin that's called Email Hunter. It's called emailhunter.co. I'm going to repeat that again so that people don't have to rewind. Emailhunter.co. What that allows you to do is within LinkedIn, you can hit the button and it will guess their email address. Okay, and that's how we found a bunch of email addresses through Apple Contacts. So we built a good app, right?
Mm-hmm.
We found the person who manages the app store for the category we're going after. Okay, now we're locked and loaded. 2, we need to tell a good story. What do? Because the app uses your face, we said, Ashwin, you're featured in this game. Your face is all over this game. Ashwin's not going to not open that email, right? You're going to open that email. It's like, what the?
Yeah.
Like, one, like, are you right? Like, are you using it appropriately? Did you get a good screenshot? Is it my good side? But you're going to open that email. And so we did that. I just said, hey, blah, blah, blah. Ashwin, your face is all over this game. Something to that extent. And we leveraged some social proof. So he said, hey, this is a great game, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and we're honest. We're like, hey, but everybody's face is featured in this game. And we use the front-facing camera to put it right here. And we used some social proof. So he had some really good social proof. He had 15 million downloads, and they were all like, from somewhere else. And this was his first like legit custom game that he was building. But he had some really good success in the App Store already. So we leveraged that, and we saw that he opened it. We were tracking it. At the time, the app was sort of waiting for review. After that email, I think he passed it over to a few people and went boom, straight into review. Like everything went fast. And then obviously you replied and said, hey, great game. Give us some assets and so forth. And it was featured. It wasn't featured in the main page of the App Store, but it got featured within like the different categories. So games and arcade games, and for family, I think was his other one that he put it in. But yeah, that's how it all happened.
That's pretty cool. So we've got one more question from one of the users. The user is Rafael.
I know Ralph.
What's
up?
His name, right?
Yeah, I know him.
Sorry, Ralph. So his question is it okay to use?
It's only for friends, Ashwin. You can't call him Ralph. You have to call him Raphael. I'm kidding. Okay, I'm ruining your show.
No, it's all good. So his question is it okay to use every space for other languages instead of just the 100 characters in the US store? So I guess he's talking about internationalization of the app. And
yeah, for other languages.
Yeah.
Guess what? Like simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese, they only give you 100 characters, but you get a lot more characters because, I don't know, when I do the translation within Sensor Tower, so within Sensor Tower, you can actually translate your keywords to different languages. And in Chinese, like it'd be like, I have 100 characters for US, but then it'd be like 50 for Chinese. I'm like, holy crap, I can use more. And so, yes, you can utilize, every app store is 100 characters, but you can utilize a lot more characters depending on the language. So, and sometimes like Russian, I think, or German, it's less. Like I have to cut out keywords because everything's longer for Germans than it is in English. So, yeah.
So going forward with that, how important is localization in getting traction for apps? Should app developers look at it at the beginning, like when they're launching the app, or should that be something that should happen, let's say, 6 months, 12 months down the road?
If you're very conscious, like if you're on a budget, I would use Sensor Tower, some of the automated tools, but upon launch, I would have it localized. So definitely have it localized. If you're on a budget, just localize the app name, the keywords. And then once you look in your analytics, if you're growing in Germany, if you're growing in China, then really focus on localizing the description, because you're gonna have to spend more and spend a little more. Yeah, find a real good translator, not a machine to translate it. So get a good translator for that when you've seen a little bit of traction in the specific countries. And we're not even localizing within the app yet, but now that you're starting to see, this is just the app store, once you're starting to see more and more traction, if your game calls for it, then go ahead and localize the in-app content. But that's the way I would break it down. App name keywords upon launch, all machine oriented, and then description with a real person for when you're getting traction in the country that you're getting traction in, and then maybe the in-app, like actual app content when you've really gotten some traction in a certain country. And there's a great site, I'll tell you, Ashwin, too, is Genko, Gengo. Here's the website to check out.
Okay, cool. I'm also putting the links in the chat, so anyone who's interested in going and check out the links, please go ahead. So my next question is, how do you measure success for your ASO campaign? And what's the highest increase in conversion rate you have managed to achieve for your clients? I know you've achieved 233% for your own app, but for your clients.
For my clients, it's hard to tell because it's not something I follow up with. Actually, you know what? What we did really well was, and I guess this will answer your first part of your question, is we had a keyword, one of my clients, we had a keyword that it was literally his app name. It was like, let's just say Ashwin, right? Like that was his keyword. And he was ranking number 6 for it. And we got it to number 1 using different strategies in there. But I would say like that would be success. Like how do we improve our rank for relevant keywords? A lot of people want to go for the Instagrams, even though they have nothing to related to Instagram, but focus on the keywords that really matter to you and then try to rank really, like I want to be in the top 3, definitely in the top 10. If I'm not in the top 10, I just get rid of it because there's no point, right? Like I try a different keyword. So if I'm able to increase, and if it's definitely a keyword, like for my client, like Ashwin, I wanted to rank well for that, right? So focus on it. How do you rank better for that particular keyword? Optimize it, do different strategies to really get there. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would say.
Okay. So now I'll go more like a bit beyond ASO and get your thoughts on some other topics. So there's always a lot of focus that developers put on acquiring users, like getting the most downloads, but there's hardly any focus on engagement or retention. Is it not sexy enough? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I know. I think Crossy Road did an extremely well job at promoting, obviously, and then engaging and retaining their users. Like I still play this stinking app, to this day. And he really talked about the success of Crossy Road being that, like he really focused more on the engagement and retention over anything else. Like he didn't care about growth because he knew if he got that right, growth would become a lot easier. And so, because like it becomes a better story, right? Like, hey, we have a really good story to tell. So yes, it's not sexy and it's something that I like to talk about. And that's why, I showed you these small little things within streaks, because it's these small little features and these things that you might not have noticed that really keeps an app engaged. So I'll talk to my, like my wife and my father-in-law. They look at Crossy Road, they say, that's just Frogger. Like, that's just Frogger. They just copied Frogger. No wonder they're so big, right? And it's like, yeah, sure. From a gameplay perspective, yes. But from a retention, monetization, engagement level, I think they did a really, really good job of, giving you rewards when you don't expect it, giving you free characters, making you play a game within a game, which is like, I think very novel at the time. It was like very brand new. Nobody was doing this. And so everybody was just relying on like pop-up ads and doing all this stuff. But they were like, hey, like get more coins and you can use these coins to play this machine and this like gumball machine thing. And people like that, right? Like these are things that they were thinking about. And on the surface, you think, oh, this is Frogger. But if you look deep down within the app, you see that, oh, there's all these little mechanics that make it one of the top grossing still to this day. So it's not sexy, but that's probably why, these apps are able to like really do a lot better than most people, because most people are doing what, like focus more on like the top level, top promotion. That's it. And not really on creating a great app.
That probably goes back to the point that you made in the beginning. When you're going for the PR, know your USP, get feedback from your beta users. I guess people should continue doing that throughout the process, get constant feedback from the App Store, reviews, competition, and how people are using the application. Probably incorporate that a bit more, right?
I mean, that's what you would do with any product that you had, right? If I was launching a SaaS product, that's what I would do. I would have a hook, right? Like a marketing message that I would put up there, and I would try different marketing languages. I would A/B test the marketing language to figure out like what's really increasing the conversion rate. I would fill out what the forms are. Like, there's a lot of things that we think on the web that we kind of take granted for in the app space. And primarily because, a lot of it's apps and a lot of it's like it's not as, I guess, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not as mature as the web. Whereas web, we know, like, we got to A/B test, we got to do content marketing, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to get our name out there this way. With apps, just like, we just launch it, right? That's it. Just get it out there, go. And that's sort of, I think we're missing that critical part. It's like, how do you, and I've been guilty of it. I was going to write this blog post with comparing OSnap and this app that I just tried out called Best Me. It's a camera app. And it was like, the perfect app for selfies. And I looked at it and I was like, yes, this does a way better job than what my app does, because my app is very simple. And I'm like, yes, I am guilty of these same things that I talk about. I didn't pay enough attention to, because I thought, like my app was like, take a picture and then go share on Instagram. Because I figure like that's what you're gonna do. Like you just want to take a picture. I'm gonna make it really easy for you to take a picture. But best means like you take a picture and it's like, it looks beautiful. I don't even need Instagram. Like that's really well done. And they still have that feature. You can tap anywhere on the screen to take a picture. But I was like, wow, this is a really, really well done app. And that's the key difference. I was put mine as a really bad, poorly done app versus a really well done app too. So, whoa.
There was a lag. I'll just, because we started off with app indexing, and I know like Apple may not have done a great job at it, but app indexing is where it's going, and everyone is trying to improve how the apps are discovered in the App Store. Do you think it'll have a big impact in the app world as we go forward in the near future?
I think so. I mean, obviously, it's a big thing that I think a lot of people are focused on because there's so many apps out there, like with the Explore feature in iOS 8. I don't know when they introduced it, but Apple's starting to do as much as they can to highlight some really well done new apps. And I think they've done a really good job of finding the balance between curation versus just showing anything that was new, right? Which was something that they used to do. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a big thing that a lot of people are focused on. And they bought Chomp back in the day, so I don't know if they're using their technology for anything, but I'm sure it's a problem that we all have, and they're all working on it. Just like Google worked on it within search, like making things really fast and highlighting some of the best things. I think Apple's really trying to do that themselves. They're a little bit slower than Google, I would say, but I think they'll get there.
So they're always like constantly like changing the algorithms in the App Store. So as an app developer, how do I keep track of the app stores? Like are there certain metrics that I should look for, or like how should I track the app store algorithms and how they're changing?
I mean, if you're within the game, then you're gonna know, right? Like I'm always in the App Store every Thursday when the App Store refreshes. I'm figuring out. I'm reading. There's an Apple event that Sankit is switching between this one. Thank you. Take that, Tim Cook. And so like it's being on there as much as possible, like being involved in the game, seeing what's up there, knowing that you can't do it all. Ashwin, like we talked a lot about different strategies. Know that you can't do it all. Like you're either a good engineer and you're going to focus more on like the technical side and the engineering and scalability. You're going to suck at the marketing side. So you're going to bring on somebody that can help you with that. Or if you're a good marketing person, like I am, I think I need to bring on a good product person and a design person. Like I'm going to really suck at that. And so I really need to, with my next app that I'm building, it's a game. I really need to focus on the retention. I really need to focus on things that I'm not thinking about. And I need to talk to like professional gamers and professional people who do games. I think the design looks really good. I think the product is where, while I can study it as much as possible, there's just things that I'm not going to see. And so I really want to take my time with it. And I think a lot of times we rush things too. I want to say hi to Scott's 4-year-old son. I think it's Caillou, right? Just like the show Caillou. Yeah, he's hanging with us. What's up? 4-year-old son. That's great. So, hey, know this face, Caillou. Listen to the podcast. Grow with me.
He'll be making apps pretty soon. You may have competition for your education apps.
I think I scared him. I got a little too close to the camera.
It's all good. So I was just wondering. So which app? Because you made so many apps yourself, and you've helped so many clients. Which app has been your toughest challenge, and what have been the biggest learnings from it?
I mean, there's been a ton of challenges, right? Like my very first app I made, it was very early on in the App Store days. So it was early 2011, and I hit number 8 under educational games. Like sucking at no PR, sucking at ASO, just was great, getting like thousands of downloads right upon release. I was like, holy crap, this is so easy. And then my next app, which I was really proud of, and like I spent some time on it, I launched it, and I was in Miami at the time. We're on vacation. I was like, honey, watch this. Like we're gonna go home to a stack of money. Like watch this App Annie email. And I hit a 0. Like I got 0 freaking downloads on the first day. And I was like, what the hell happened within like 3-4 months that I've been in the app space? And so what I did with that app was I really believed in it. One, so it was black and white because I was making it off a spin-off of another app that was black and white. So I changed it to all color. I was like, oh, duh, like kids love color. So I changed it to color, and that actually helped, right? Like I started getting some downloads and became one of my better performing apps. And then because of the podcast, like I did some ASO work, and then like that helped too. And like I was making more money. So it's like I was really committed to it, and I kept going. And with OSnap, like I was really proud of this app, but then I know that using Best Me, I was like, oh man, like I failed. Like it really felt like that yesterday. I was like, man, this is so much better. And now I know I can use that knowledge of like, you know what, here's what I wasn't thinking about. Like, how do I really go above and beyond? Because people want convenience, and think about all the different things. Because all I thought was, I just want to make like taking pictures really easy. That's all I was thinking about. But instead, like we want to take pictures because one, we want to remember it. Two, we want to share it. Like these are things that Best Me does really well. Like one, they make you look really good on it with their filters. Two, like it was a really well done app. And then three, like, you know, like I want to share this photo. So like I was like, hey honey, I sent my wife a selfie text. I was like, hey, look how good your husband looks, yeah, you know? So I think it's like, yeah, like really focusing on it and think about user feedback. If you really believe in the idea, keep pushing. It's hard. Everything's hard. I think everything's hard.
So just to let our listeners know, you can send in your questions now. It'll be my last question, and then we're going to take up all your questions. Whatever you want to ask, I'll throw that to Steve, and he'll have to figure out a way to answer all of them. I'm putting a lot of pressure.
I want a question from Caillou.
I think he wants a joke than a question.
Okay, good. Get on. Send him the link.
So Steve, do you think web as we know it will die, and it'll all be an app world? Everything will be apps and no web at all?
Doubt it. I mean, I just don't think. I talked to the co-founder of Techcrunch, Keith here, and he was saying like, yes, it's like Google's a dying web, or living dead is what he phrased it as. And I thought it was a great way of doing it. Like they're not officially dead. They're probably never going to die, but they're really doing well. So I don't think the web's ever going to go away. Like we need a lot of what I do is still on the browser, right? But mobile is going to make things that used to happen on the web really easier. And so being able to FaceTime without any type of web. Sometimes, you know, like we'll be on Skype call. I'm like, sorry, Steve, my computer sucks. Like I'm just calling you from my phone. Like that's the convenience of mobile. So we're going to be there. It's just, I think we got to start thinking about like, how do we take things that are happening on the web and really simplify it and make it easier for mobile, because everything's going to be on the go, right? Like we're going to have these all the time. I don't think the tablet will ever replace the PC, but I think everybody has a need for a certain thing at a certain particular point in their life. We're sort of segmenting, right? Like before it was just like, we just always be on the computer and that was it, right? Like maybe we call somebody and pager and all that stuff. Now it's like everything's happening on the phone, like all our messagings. I don't even want to call people. I just want to text somebody, right? Like, and so start thinking about that. Like, how do we think ahead and what's the next step? And because I asked him this, because I have a problem of doing this, generating really big ideas. And he really talked about that framework of how do you break down, how do you generate big ideas? How do you see? Because I can't see in the future. I can see what's happening now and react to it and then excel in it. But I can't think about like what's going to happen 5 years down the road. And I'm trying to do that. Like I'm trying to train my brain to think what's really going to happen 5 years down the road. And so he really broke that down. And essentially what he said was create two circles. One that is, I think, the past and the future. And then I forget. You gotta listen to that episode. I'll probably go back and listen to it. But he said he broke down his process for doing that. And I thought that was brilliant, the way he did it.
Great. So we have one more question from Sanket. His question is, there's so many apps out there. Is it even a viable business to be an app developer or get into app development? What are your thoughts?
I think so. And I think the way I would frame this is think outside the app store. Like the apps is just one means. So the biggest mistake that I think most people make is if they don't think of the apps as a business. Think of it as a business. Like, what does that really mean, right? Meaning, if I were to start a website, how much time would I give it before I saw, like, I want to really heavily invest in this website or heavily invest in this product, right? Like, people aren't thinking about it as business. They're just thinking about create a cool product and get it out there. That's not a business. And then, so really think about it as from a business. And I also want to talk about like building a platform for yourself outside just the apps, right? So talk about your apps, but also build your apps, but also talk about like what you learned through the apps, because then try to build your own community. I mean, this is just what has worked for me. Yes, I do apps. Yes, I do app promotion. Yes, I have this agency, but it was because I started interviewing people I really admired that I grew a brand. And that brand really has helped me to this day with things that are not even business related or kind of business related. But when I'm down in the dumps and I hate my life and I don't want to do anything related to business, like the community that I've built up has really helped me get through that. And so having that community and that audience is going to really help you to do anything else, because it could be what's going to be the hottest thing next 10 years. It could be watches, but because you have the community, because you have the audience, like you can turn into watches. I can slowly turn into mobile, iBeacons, wherever I wanted to go to because of the audience that I've built up. So really start thinking about building your own audience. I think it's going to be very, very, I think, like we live in a YouTube world, right? Like everybody can be a quote unquote celebrity. So start building that audience that can take you anywhere, whichever way you want to go. So I'll think about that. But I do have a bulldozer to Caillou. A toy one, but
I like, man, you're the coolest person alive.
Raphael says, email hunter works. Thanks, guys. That is a hustler. See, just hear about it now. Boom, get it, go. Yeah. Got an email, probably sent it out. So let us know how that goes. That was cool.
That is cool. So Sanket has more questions. He's bringing it in. So he's saying,
stop paying attention to the Apple thing that's happening on right now.
He's saying, so I think it's a follow-up to the answer that you gave, and his question is, how do you find the best market to make an app for? Is there some way to predict success for it?
Just research. I think a lot of things we can do through research that we're not doing. So whether it's before I even build anything, creating mocks, creating little initial designs, then going out to talking to the audience, right? Like do a bunch of research, look at competing apps, look at their 1-star ratings. Within Sensor Tower, you can actually do that, sort by 1-star and see what features that might be missing within that particular app. And so I think a lot of times we get excited about our idea and we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's go build it. It's done. Let's do it. Rather than taking the time to let it marinate and think about the research. Hey, is this cool? Like, what would you want to see in it? Like, is this even worth it? And so things that we would technically do if it was like a web product, or even if we're like manufacturing something, we would probably do a lot of research before we actually get it manufactured and invest heavily in, building 100 units. We'd probably build 50 units and then, okay, let's build a factory to build 100 units, right? Like we really take it slow. I think in this day and age where everything happens so quick and you can get a blog up there and like today, we don't take enough time to actually research what's going on. So I would say like just focus on what market that well that you can serve, and really focus on the pain points. Don't try to, people say this all the time. Don't try to create a vitamin, create a painkiller. Like streaks is creating a painkiller. Like it's something that people, like what are people really struggling with, and try to create something with that to make it a little bit easier for them.
Cool. So I think hopefully Sanket enjoyed that answer. I think he gave you a very good feedback. He says he loves your energy. I think I love your energy too. So I think there are no more questions. I'm going to say one last time. I think there's 30-second delay, so we'll wait for 30 seconds and talk about something. Maybe probably check at the Apple event. So guys, if you have any more questions for Steve, just get on YouTube and send in your questions, and he can answer it for you. One final call, and let's see if the iPhone 6s came out. I'm going to check it out right now.
Thanks everybody for joining. I mean, I don't think I could comment because I haven't set up my YouTube channel because I'm doing this on AppMasters.co. But thank you all for joining. I mean, Scott, thank you. Sanket, thank you. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. I mean, yeah, I'm humbled that even a few showed up.
And thank you for actually coming to the first live podcast. So it's a scary thing. The microphone can break down, the camera cannot work, and there are people waiting. And you'll probably kill me. You'll come to Delhi and find me out. So.
Yeah, well, you're staying up late to do this, man.
Yeah, it's almost 12:30 a.m. But I would have stayed late anyways for the Apple event. So okay. Yeah, it's a good trade-off. And they came out with 6S and 6S Plus. I like the name. It's just like flows. Success. Yeah.
Yeah, success. We got to get this success, right? We got to get this success. It's guaranteed success.
Yes, billions and billions worth of success.
I want the plus plus.
Add as many pluses as you want.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. That was great. And I think if people still want to ask questions, you can, the Twitter handle for Steve is at Steve P. Young. So you can send him the questions directly and we can carry forward the conversation on Twitter. Just want to let you know, we've also got a show called the Mobile Growth Show, where we talk to mobile experts just like Steve and get into the nitty-gritty of mobile development, mobile engagement. And we are on iTunes, and you can also check out our blog at Upquire. That's UPQUIRE, upquire.com/blog. There's a lot of great content, and there'll be more people like Steve, and probably we'll have Steve again for a live podcast if we are successful.
Correction, there will never be another person like Steve.
That's true. Someone a bit less, but maybe the same energy. Will that work?
Sweet. Thanks, Ashwin.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
If you guys want to follow up with me, you can find me on appmasters.co. All the information's on there, appmasters.co. So that's where my home base. So but thanks, Ashwin. Upquire is awesome.
Thank you. And just for viewers, we'll have show notes. So we'll give you all the links that Steve mentioned, and also link to his website, Twitter, how to get in touch with him, and any questions that you may have. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night or good afternoon. Take care.
Bye. Bye, Caillou.
Bye. That was great.